Welcome back to another episode of Embracing Life After 60. I'm your host, Robin McCoy, and today's conversation is one that affects so many of us, whether we realize it or not, and will hit my hot button every single time. Today, I am with Dr. Keith Ludwick, President and CEO of StopScammingMe.com, a dedicated advocate for protecting seniors from fraud and deception. With a career that spans over 2 decades as a special agent with the FBI, Dr. Ludwick brings a powerful mix of real-world law enforcement experience, cybersecurity expertise, and a deep commitment to public safety. Not only does he lead the charge against scams through his nonprofit, but he also runs the Ludwick Agency, a private investigative and security consulting firm. With multiple advanced degrees, including a Ph.D. in Biodefense, Dr. Ludwick is a nationally recognized author, educator, and expert on technology, terrorism, intelligence, and cyber issues. In this episode, we are going to dive into the growing epidemic of scams, why seniors are increasingly targeted, national, local, and global impacts, and most importantly, how you and your loved ones can protect yourselves. Plus, he'll share a sneak peek of his upcoming book, ScamSmart, an expert's guide to spotting scams and living the fraud-free life, written especially for the senior community. This is one you're not going to want to miss, so let's get to it. In today's world, older adults face major transitions like downsizing, relocating, or modifying their homes to age in place, all while embracing life after these changes. As a senior home advisor and seasoned realtor, Robin McCoy guides these decisions with care and thoughtful planning, helping create a vibrant future. Welcome to Relax, I Got This, Embracing Life After 60 with me, your host, Robin McCoy. All right, Keith, well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. This topic is really important and really serious, so I am grateful to share this time with you.
No, I appreciate you having me on. I agree 100%. Clearly, I've devoted some personal and financial resources towards this. I'm glad to be a part of this.
So let's just kind of start at the top. So give everybody a little bit of your background. You're a former special agent with the FBI. You have many degrees in cybersecurity and a variety of other things. Tell everybody kind of where you come from and how you landed here.
I started in the Air Force. I spent 5 years as a pilot in the Air Force, and then I left due to a drawdown and joined the FBI. It was kind of I don't want to say it was a lark, but it was not my intended path, but it ended up being the best path for me. I did 5 years in New York City. I did counterintelligence work, and then I was in St. Louis, did counterintelligence work, and I went to headquarters and I started, excuse me, getting involved in technical operations. And that's where I kind of ended my career when I transferred down to Tampa. I spent my last 5 years of the FBI here running the technical squad, doing technical operations. After the FBI, I got into teaching. I do have a lot of degrees. My wife teases me all the time that some people collect coins, I collect degrees. I have a bachelor's in computer science, a master's in homeland security, a master's in cybersecurity, and a Ph.D. in biodefense. I teach courses on terrorism, cyber, artificial intelligence, that kind of stuff. And then 2 years ago, I started my own private investigative agency. And what happened is I started getting calls about once a week from a friend, a family friend, a friend of a family friend. My mother got scammed out of $250. What do I do? My father got scammed out of $1,000. What do I do? Next week, a colleague, my husband's getting scammed out of $50,000. What do I do? And it kind of came to a head when a friend of my wife's called and said, I lost my house. And we were kind of like, and she's 75, lived alone, no family, not married, no kids, a small, modest house, lives, good life, but a modest life. And we couldn't quite get out of her what happened.
Right.
She had nowhere to go, so she actually moved in with us for a few months, and we were able to piece together that she had been scammed out of her house. Yeah,
And how do these people sleep?
yeah, and using using my private investigative skills and just some persistence on my wife's part and everything else, we were able to figure out that the person who did this actually had done this to 3 other people. And she basically convinced them to sign their house over to them. Now, it's kind of a long story and it's probably
Yeah.
not pertinent to this conversation, but we were able to get her back into her house. But the sad part is that she still does not own that house. And when she passes on, that house will go to the scammer, and there's nothing that anybody can do short of spending thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars for legal fees. And she just doesn't have it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how that's the journey of how my wife and I started this company.
Well, and it seems that there is truly an epidemic of these scams. I mean, as a realtor, and I've had a couple of instances where now it was after the fact, we'd already sold the house, but people were trying to call and tell my client and friend that her house was in danger of being in foreclosure, but they could save her from that. And, fortunately, she knew to call me, and she knew that the house was already sold. She didn't own it anymore. So, but they seem to be on the rise.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of government organizations out there that put out statistics, the Federal Trade Commission, the FBI, a few others. We rely on the FBI statistics because, well, frankly, I'm FBI, so right.
You're kind of partial.
I'm partial, right? I'm biased. But in 2024, I might have these numbers slightly off, but in 2024, the average loss for a scam was $83,000.
Why seniors are targeted, and it's because they still write checks, or they don't have families. Or if they've got a niece or a grandchild that somebody impersonating a police officer says that grandchild is in trouble and making phone calls, that they become very vulnerable to that.
We Are One Heart is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to bridging the gap between the needs and resources of low-income seniors and veterans. Rooted in compassion and love, our mission is to provide housing, living assistance, and access to critical resources that ensure dignity and support for the elderly in underserved communities. At the heart of We Are One Heart's work is the belief that every individual shares a common humanity, a heart connected through love and care. We are committed to creating a future that honors those who have shaped the past by offering programs and services that enhance their quality of life. For more information or to donate, visit wa1h.org. That's wa1h.org.
Right. So this is probably a good segue to talk about that. What makes seniors vulnerable, right? And not to get too much into the nerdiness of it, but a lot of what I speak about and talk about and have written about deal with is rooted in academic literature. I didn't just make this up. It's not just based on law enforcement experience. Most of it is rooted in the academic literature. And I have the benefit of having that skill set to go look through that and the access to the literature. And if you distill this down, what you'll find is that there's pretty much 5 reasons why seniors are targeted. And the first that we mentioned is the technical vulnerability. If you're 60, 70 years old, my guess is that unless you grew up as an IT professional or something, you really don't want to spend your time learning all the new technologies. I tell people all the time that I teach this stuff. I have advanced degrees in this stuff, and I can't keep up. I can't, right?
Yep.
So if you're, somebody else who aren't even interested in this, you'd probably much rather spend your time with your grandkids than you would reading about artificial intelligence, right? So scammers use that against you.
Right.
And, if I hear a voice that's my son on the phone, I know that it might be artificial intelligence, and I can quickly resolve whether that's him or not. Whereas if you're a senior and you're not that aware, maybe, right? So the second reason is we call it the trusting generation. And there is academic research to support that seniors over 60 are more trusting of people than younger generations. It's a fact. And you know, we often give the example that in the 50s, you could walk into a bank, talk to the manager, go into the room, sit down, and an hour later you could come out, shake their hand, and have a loan, right?
Right.
That's that trust that generation has. What's the nuance here, though, and this is supported again by the literature, is that the seniors tend to be more trusting. And I should point out, I'm pretty close, right? I only have 3 years. I'm there.
I'm 62,
Right?
but I'm a cynic though.
Yeah.
So
But seniors are also, they're more trusting of negative information. So if somebody calls you up and says, hey, your Social Security check is going to go up by 20%, and it's an authority figure, you're likely to be like, oh, wow. But if somebody says your check is going to go down by 20%, go down, that's negative information. You're much more likely to believe that.
interesting.
Seniors. So that's the second reason. The third reason is finances. Most seniors have more disposable income. You know, if they're drawing Social Security, then you have a check coming every month. And it might not be a lot. And I'm not saying you're rich, but at least you have money coming in. Most seniors have some sort of house or equity that they could use. Maybe they have investments. Maybe they have a retirement. Seniors all the time will look at me and go, well, I'm not rich. That doesn't make sense. And what I tell them is like, my son, he's in the U.S. Navy, right? He's enlisted. He's still calling me for money, right? And if a scammer calls him for money, he's going to say, I don't have any money. You have to call my dad, right? So you might not feel like you're rich, but
you've got more resources.
right. And then the fourth reason is isolation.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big problem. You know, seniors, they don't go to work. Well, a lot. I mean, you're working right now and stuff, but seniors that are vulnerable, they don't go to work. They don't talk around the water cooler. You know, they don't have an opportunity to say, hey, I met this person online. I think we're developing a relationship. And their friend to be like, what? Right? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
You obviously, kids move away, grandkids move away, maybe spouses. You know, we all know the inevitability of life. And so people are alone, and that causes them some problem. And then
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
last,
I mean, that's a big one. I think that's a big one.
yeah, that's and more and more research. It's not definitive yet, but more and more research is pointing that to be the biggest vulnerability.
Yeah.
And then the last one is embarrassment, fear of
Yeah.
embarrassment, especially for seniors. And I would like to couch this comment more to the adult children, really, than the seniors themselves. Is that a lot of seniors are really scared of losing their independence. We all know that. And if you start saying, I just got scammed out of 50, 100, 250, 2,000, whatever, if there are other signs, then family members are more likely to say, well, we're going to take away your checkbook, right? And so it's this embarrassment that prevents them from telling people what's happened, and then they can't learn from it, and then they're more isolated, and it's just this vicious cycle. And
Well,
then
and those are some of the stories that you hear, right? Is, and then the adult kids, that maybe they do, maybe they're threatening, I'm going to take your keys away. You can't do this. You need to move to this place, and that's probably not the way to handle it with mom or dad.
right, and it's hard because, I'm in a similar situation. My mother-in-law, she lives just, half a mile away, and she's independent, lives by herself. But every once in a while you can tell she's afraid to tell us something because she's afraid that we're going to be like, hey, maybe you should have, and she's like, no, I like my life the way it is. And I don't want that. And this fear of embarrassment feeds on itself. And then what studies have also shown is that if you've been scammed once, you are more likely to be scammed again. Scammers.
So we don't learn. So what is it that keeps us from learning from the first experience?
Well, the scammer, go back to the 5 vulnerabilities, and the scammers use different tactics. And,
Okay.
that's not to for the shameless plug, but that's one of the reasons why I developed Stop Scamming Me, is because we are trying to educate them, the seniors and the adult children, on all these various aspects so they can have the tools to protect themselves.
Well, and that's, I guess, so if, I get scammed, the authority figure, and now they know that I'm vulnerable. So now they come from a different direction, and it could be the same group attacking the same person
Yes.
because they know they've already targeted me as vulnerable because I'm isolated. They know I have resources,
Well,
etc.
and there's more to it than that, too, is we think, I hate making blanket statements because they're rarely correct, but a lot of the perception of a scammer is some guy in his mom's basement. He's like 35 years old, right? And the reality is that is a fact that happens, but more and more what we're seeing are organized criminal activity.
Yeah.
There are companies overseas that are being formed solely for the purpose of scamming.
And they're smarter than us. I mean, they clearly are able to put this together and repeat the act over and over and over again.
Well, in some ways, it's a sales, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there are stories. I say stories. They're not stories. There are incidences that have been proven where in some of these countries in Southeast Asia, kids, I say kids, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, young 20s, are being hired from the local population for a sales job, and they show up at the company. They'll go get hired, go through 2 weeks of training to learn sales, and then when they sit down to do their job, they're given a script. And the script is for a scam, not for sales. But these people, these young kids, are so scared now because they've been indoctrinated into this company. They've already gotten a paycheck. And there's some cultural issues there too about respect of seniors and all that, your elders and your boss and all that stuff, that they start perpetrating these scams and they're kind of trapped, right?
Wow.
And they get bonuses if they do more scams and all of this. So, and then you couple that with, we talked about the 5 vulnerabilities. The last one I talked about the embarrassment and the failure to talk about it. This is kind of a sad example, and I hope I don't offend anybody saying this, but my wife and I were talking a few weeks ago about a friend of ours whose daughter had a miscarriage. And it was kind of funny because if you think back 20, 40, 60 years ago, nobody talked about it. Nobody talked about it. But nowadays, it's a little bit more like, it happened, it was sad, it's a reality of life, but why are we putting it in the dark, right? Why are we hiding all of this?
Right.
And my wife and I realized that a lot of that is reflected in scams. I would propose that you, all of your listeners, viewers, all of us have been scammed at one point or another. A lot of times we don't even know it. We gave money to something and that money vanished into somebody's pocket and we didn't even know.
Yeah.
But why is it such a stigma? People think, well, you'll think I'm stupid or gullible or all of that.
I feel stupid. I should know better.
Right. And we're working to try to get people to overcome that perception.
Well, and I think that's what this makes this conversation important too, is putting it out there so that people, if it happens to them, that they know they're not the only one, that it happens a lot. And if it happens to someone you love, understand that they're not the only one, and it can very easily happen to anybody.
Yes. Now, there are extremes, and that there are people that need a little extra help. Um, People like hearing and talking about scams. I have yet been to one seminar or presentation or conversation where somebody in the audience didn't, oh, let me tell you what happened to me, right? And most of them are like, well, I was smart enough to cut it off, but this is what happened. And I try to stop them right there and say, you know what? It's got nothing to do with smarts or education, because the tools of the scammers revolve around psychology and manipulation, a sense of urgency, and fear. And I don't care how smart, how dumb you are, those are, lizard brain
Yeah.
type of responses
Yeah.
that you will use to survive.
So what are some of the ways? So you said the 5 vulnerabilities. How can people protect themselves? And I always say everybody has a senior, right? Everybody knows a senior, whether it's your neighbor or your parent or someone at church or something, right? Everybody has a senior. And how can we protect ourselves and our seniors? How do we learn to recognize this? And how, I mean, other than, talking about it's not, don't be embarrassed by it.
Well, I think, and I'm going to go back to the war on drugs.
Mm-hmm.
It's better to notice the signs rather than to try the drugs, right? Like you would
Right?
never like, oh, I don't want to, I want to make sure this is not a drug, so I'm gonna, right,
So
or
let me
whatever.
take it. Yeah.
Like that's kind of silly. So the idea is the same thing with a scam, is you want to be able to recognize the warning signs and what to do to get ahead of time. We have at Stop Scamming Me developed a protocol that we call the SSM, Stop Scamming Me protocol, right? And it's something I use. It's very simplistic. And basically, anytime you're confronted with a financial decision. Now, if you're going to a garage sale with $5, maybe this doesn't apply there, right? I mean, that's just kind of like, okay, first of all, if you're going to lose $5 at a garage sale, whatever, right?
Whatever.
But if anybody is ever putting some sense of urgency or fear on you, then you have to employ this SSM protocol, right? And the first thing is stop. Stop whatever you're doing. So if you get that call from the IRS or you get that call from your grandson and there's a sense of urgency, you need to stop and just take a step back. Just, right? We like to tell people there is never a financial emergency.
Yeah.
It takes, you're a real estate agent. It takes 30 days to close on a house.
Yes. Yes.
So, even if you go buy a car, it takes 4 to 6 hours.
Yes. I just bought one.
Yeah.
I said, I told my husband I'll be out of there in 2 hours. He goes, no, you're not.
Yeah. You go to the bank and get a signature loan, it's going to take a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So there are no emergencies.
No.
If the utility company and calls you and says, "Oh, we're going to shut your power off at 5 o'clock today," that's a sense of urgency and fear. Like that never happens, right?
Yeah.
You get a call that somebody says, "Hey, so and so is in the hospital. If you don't pay a deposit, we're not going to be able to help them." Right? That's a sense of urgency and fear. So anytime you see that, stop. And then secure the information. That's the second S. Stop, secure the information. Meaning, what do they want? Why do they want it? Is it reasonable? How can I verify this? Start being critical. Think and ask questions. And then the last step is M, make your own connection. So here's a good example.
Are you 62 or older and considering buying a home? It's important to explore all the opportunities available to you. I want to introduce you to Alicia Dutton with Mutual of Omaha Reverse Mortgage. Since 2013, Alicia has been dedicated to helping baby boomers unlock the benefits of reverse mortgages and reverse for purchase programs. Whether you are looking to stay in your current home or right size into a new one, Alicia provides personalized attention to meet your unique needs and timeline. She is a trusted resource for financial advisors, realtors, and loan officers, and has been a guest on this podcast. She is ensuring you are educated and empowered every step of the way. Discover the possibilities with Alicia Dutton today.
My wife just had an example, and it just left my head. So I'll give you the standard one, is that the utility company calls you and says, you missed a payment, you're late, your check bounced, whatever. We're going to turn your power off at 5 o'clock unless you pay us. Well, the first thing you do is stop. You're like, well, I made a payment. The bank didn't tell me the check didn't clear, right? That's secure. Now you're securing the information. Why would they call me when they send me a letter? Then you make your own connection. So you tell the person on the phone, and you don't have to be rude. A lot of seniors don't like being rude. A lot of people don't like being rude. You just tell them, you know what? There's a lot of scams going around lately. I'm afraid I'm going to have to hang up the phone and call them myself. You make your own connection.
Yeah.
Sorry. And if it's a real life bank or utility, what they should say is absolutely.
I understand. You should exactly do that.
You hang up the phone. You go to a different source, your phone or your internet or your spouse or your friend, and say, can you get me the phone number for here in Florida, Duke Energy, that right? And then you call them and you go, hi, I just got a call, right? I'll give you, here's an example, real life example, just happened 3 days ago. Client of mine called me, their daughter is a lawyer, and a police officer called the daughter saying, oh, you had a filing, the motion's wrong, all of this stuff. You have to call us back or you're going to be disbarred. Now, they left a voicemail and there was no demand for money. So her father called me, was like, obviously all agitated and worried about this stuff, and said, hey, they didn't ask for money or whatever. So I stopped, right? I secured the information, meaning, did she make some filings? Is that the way? I'm not a lawyer, right? Does that the way it only works? And then I made my own connection. So I called the police department for him, right? I called him, non-emergency number. Hi, I'm a private investigator. I'm doing some work for a client, right? Can you verify this? And he's like, absolutely not, right? We would never
going to do that.
And so I called my client back and I'm like, it was a scam. And I did some more digging and there were some other red flags. They don't really apply here, but yeah. So.
Well, and I just think, with my mother is 89 years old, and she's got her phone. I put my face on it and my sister's face. And I'm like, nobody else is calling you. So when the phone rings and it's not my face or her face, you don't need to answer it because her doctors call me, but just trying to just keep her from getting caught up into anything.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. But to me, I talk about in my presentations, a lot of people, the myth of scams. And one of the myths is, I hear this from seniors a lot. I never answer a number I don't recognize, so I'm safe. Well, there's a couple problems.
That's a false sense of security for sure.
Yes, there's a couple problems with this. The first is, as we just pointed out, I'm pretty close to being a senior. I own a business. I have to answer the phone.
Yeah, me too.
Right? Yeah, right. You can't do that. You have to answer your phone. Now, if you're, really retired and you're in your mid to late 70s and you're not really working, then okay, maybe you don't have to worry about that. But then the second part, this goes back to the technical vulnerability, is it is pretty simplistic now to be able to get applications for your phone that will help you spoof a number. So with a little bit of research, we can find out, you just gave us a story, but I can say, Robin, here's your mom. I can find out probably 30, 45 minutes who your mom is, and then I could probably find her phone number. And then I can spoof it, right? You own a business, so your phone number, you can see where that goes.
Yeah.
Here's
Yeah.
the third
Absolutely.
problem of this. It really bugs the crap out of, can I say that? Crap out of
You
me
can say crap.
that there are seniors out there that are living in fear of answering their phone.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is ridiculous. That we're in a society where you're afraid to answer your phone because you don't know. So
Who's calling?
that's why we really push the education piece.
Yeah.
And this is a good segue to talk about that, like most church groups or senior groups or independent living facilities, they'll have every once in a while the police will show up and give a anti-scam
Mhm.
presentation. That's great. Obviously, former law enforcement myself, I have the utmost respect. But there's a couple problems here. The first is I would rather have the police out there. Like I'd rather have some old retired guy and have the people who are actually doing the work out there,
Yeah.
right? Second of all, it's pull rather than push, meaning the independent living facility or the church group has to pick up the phone, call the sheriff's office, schedule it for a month down the road because there's only 2 people that do that, right? And they come, give a presentation, everybody claps. It was great, but it was an inch deep, mile wide, and then that's it. Until a year later, 2 years later, the church group goes, we should have the sheriff's office come. And then they do, and it's just that cycle. And
Yeah.
guess what? It's somebody different,
Right.
right?
Right.
And it's an inch deep, mile wide, right? So we push more of a model of you should have a relationship with somebody where you can come, and there are quarterly seminars every quarter, and you're covering a new scam, what to look for and how that applies and how the technology can be changed so that you should do that. Because you don't get to be a tennis pro or a chess master after playing one game a year. You
Right.
need constant education and training. And
Well,
that's
and
part of
like you said, they're changing and evolving all the time, right? I saw another thing where this woman, I can't remember what they took her money, and she said, you could not convince me that that wasn't my grandson on the phone, that they had manipulated using AI, that it was, she said, I don't care. I knew that was him. And it turns out it wasn't.
Yeah. I'll be completely honest. This was before I was a private investigator, but about 3 years ago, I got a phone call and I swear it was my son. I
Yeah.
still swear to this day. And I had the sense of urgency and fear. And, I luckily was able to, based on my background of being law enforcement, when he started saying, I need money for a lawyer, that's when I was like, wait a minute, you get
Yeah.
a lawyer appointed to you, right? I had to memorize the Miranda rights, that whole thing, right? If you cannot afford one will be appointed to you. And I was like, no courthouse is going to ask for money up front for a lawyer.
Yeah.
And that's when the red flag started going off. But I will still swear to this day, and my son and I laugh about it, that I swear it was him. And that was 3 or 4 years ago when the
Yeah.
artificial intelligence was barely hitting the scene.
And this is you who probably has a higher sense of questioning
Right.
everything,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That,
And you'd mentioned it, and I don't mean to pick on you, right? But you
oh, you
said,
can
"Oh,
pick
I'm
on me.
skeptical and whatever." That helps, but they will find your button.
Yeah.
And if you don't employ the SSM protocol, that's really the only way to protect yourself. I
Well,
mean, obviously,
there
there's
was, and you can go down a, like, oh, that looks good. And you get like 3 steps in and you go, all right, this is starting to look hinky. I'm out.
yeah, and there's other red flags that we talk about. If you have a contact out of the blue, I mean, I get those texts all the time. Hi, you know, want to go to the beach today? Those types of things. And my wife, she teases me because sometimes she responds and she's like, "Oh, give me the phone," and she plays with them, and then we shut it down. But if anybody's asking, if they fail to have a personal contact, meaning like this, like on Zoom. I mean, maybe they're overseas, but they're not willing to meet with you in person, or will only use messaging that's encrypted, which most messaging is encrypted now, so that's not as important as it used to be. But um, if they're asking for small amounts of money and then slowly increasing, that's a red flag. Those types of things. The sense of urgency. Every scam but one, every single one is a sense of urgency. The only exception is the romance scam.
I was going
That's
to say, let's touch on that romance thing a
yeah.
little bit and how that, how does that get into it, and how do you get out of it? I mean,
Well, I
or
would say how
recognize
to
it.
get into it. They prey on the isolation and
Uh-huh.
loneliness, right? But it's not always romance. I mean, we call it a romance scam, but I had a client once who was happily married. He was a pastor, and the scammer figured that out and represented themselves. We don't know if it's a boy or a girl, of course, but they represented themselves as a female, but we don't know that, right?
Right.
And they represented themselves as wanting to go to seminary overseas, and she was looking for guidance and mentorship. And the guy was telling his wife about this, so it wasn't romance in that
Yeah,
sense,
and it
right?
wasn't a big secret, or yeah.
And he loved to be a mentor, and he loved working with young people, especially in the pastoral realm, and a very spiritual man. And I knew him. I knew him. And his wife and I worked together at one point when I was teaching. And that's when she called me and she goes, I think there's something not right about this. And here's the scary part, right? Is so after she asked me to come and talk to him, and he lays out all of this proof that she is who she is. And right then and there, I'm like, oh God, no, 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 no. This is all
Yeah.
bad, right? But I'm trying to work within his frame of reference. So I said, let me take all of this information and I'll go back and I'll do a little digging and make sure everything's okay. It was all bogus, right? She had a bogus address. I couldn't find her name anywhere. The seminary she said she was going to didn't exist. There was just all kinds
Just
of
all
nonsense.
of it was lies. Not
All.
one bit of truth in any of it.
And this is what's scary, right, about the romance scam is that I came back 2 days later, laid it all out, and he sat there. He was out $75,000, sending her money for bus fare, medical procedures, travel, all this stuff, right? And he's sitting there like this, right, doing this thing. And then he looks at me and he says, well, she's a good person. There must be a good reason why she lied. And I was like, no, 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 you don't understand. She's not lying. She's scamming you. She's taking your
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't buy it.
So is
He,
it because your brain just doesn't,
she had
because you were
manipulated.
so convinced that your brain won't let you believe that it was a lie? Just,
Right. He was so emotionally invested in this. So that's a worst case scenario. I don't think a
yeah.
lot of them go that far, but some do. We hear about them in the news. So what do you do about it? Well, it kind of goes back to that isolation and fear of embarrassment. We recommend at Stop Scamming Me that everybody have a scam buddy. That one friend that you trust. It could be a family member, but like we talked about, some seniors are a little worried about that because they don't want to lose independence. So find another senior, somebody that you trust. Maybe if you live at an independent living facility and you have a relationship with a personal trainer, or maybe you're a banker, it could be anybody, but build that relationship with somebody. And then if you if if that hair on the back of your neck just stands up, or somebody starts to ask for money or gold or gift cards or cyber cryptocurrency, all that stuff, that's when you need to go to your buddy and say, we committed to help each other. Here's the situation. What do you think?
I think that's
And,
brilliant.
you know, people are like, well, I need this friendship, or I just won't, I'll maintain the friendship. I just won't send them any money because they're going to have an emergency where once you give $1, it's easier to give $2, and then it's easier to give $5, and then $100. So that first dollar, build that relationship. Don't live in isolation. Have somebody you trust. You can call the police, non-emergency number. Call me, right? Call anybody.
Call me.
And say, I just don't know.
Yeah.
And you know what? If it, I don't charge for 15, 20 minutes, right? Or whatever. Call me. If I could do 15 minutes worth of work and I could say, no, right? But even if it's going to take me an hour, right? What's it going to cost you? A couple $100 at the most?
Yeah.
Hire a private investigator to look into somebody, right? Is it better for you to consciously spend $100 to $200 for a peace of mind rather than go down a rabbit hole and have a relationship with somebody and lose
$75,000? Yeah. This is, we could talk for hours and hours and hours on this and still probably scratch the surface. Where can people learn more about you, what you do? I know you've got a book coming out.
Yes.
What can we do?
Well, I should have had it right. Here it is.
There it is.
Yeah. Now, this is the proof copy, but ScamSmart, an expert's guide to scam prevention for seniors. It's coming out in mid-August.
Okay.
The book covers a lot about what we talked about here today. It's written for seniors and adult children. It will be available on my website, Stop Scamming Me, and Amazon, all that stuff. Okay, that's a shameless plug, right? But
yeah,
if you just want to learn more about scams and scam prevention, you can go to stopscammingme.com. That's our website. And what we're developing, and this kind of goes back to what we said, is what we call the ScamSmart Bootcamp, which is an 8-week program to help seniors get educated so that they can answer the phone in confidence, right? Know what to look for. Yeah. Open up, talk with others. And it's more of it's a community oriented. We try to make it fun, right? Where you can sit down with 8, 10, 15, 20, 25 other seniors and laugh about this stuff and learn and watch. We had some professional videos done, and it's an 8-week program that will help educate you so that you can become an expert on scams and know what to look for and what to expect and how to protect yourself. And there's also guidance there on what to do if you do get scammed. Because
and it's bringing it out of the shadows, right? Like you said before, is not being afraid to talk about it.
Right. And there's a lot of people, you're like, I just got scammed out of $250. I'm just going to forget about it. No, you need to report that. And sure, right? And you can even report it anonymously, but this stuff is tracked and it all comes back together so that the law enforcement and the diplomats and all that can use this information. They estimate $1.2 trillion scammed globally.
Wow.
And that is low because most people don't
report it. That's incredible. That's just, I don't know. I don't even have words for it. Yeah. So. Well, thank you so much. We're going to put all your information, obviously, in the show notes, and we'll get some links to the book, especially when it comes out, so that, like you said, it's just about education and being aware. It's sometimes it's just a self-awareness and situational awareness of what may be going on around you and how to recognize it.
Yes, absolutely.
So, all right. Well, thank you, Keith. I really appreciate you spending time with us. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Relax, I've Got This, Embracing Life After 60. And make sure you hit the like and share and spread the good word and watch out for those scams. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Embracing Life After 60 with me, Robin McCoy. This podcast is produced by Jen Sariano with special thanks to the amazing team at Relax, I Got This. You can find more episodes on YouTube and wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, follow, and share to help us spread the message. Until next time, keep embracing life to the fullest.